set the stage, I'm going to take a moment here to open our virtual space with a territorial acknowledgement. The most important aspect of our conversation here tonight is understanding how to be better stewards of our land and the impact that our decisions have on our wider community. The actions that we take on our own properties contribute to the overall health of our shared watershed and the health of the wildlife that inhabit this area. We acknowledge that the Grand River watershed, including its tributaries, are located on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. We recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous people that we share this land with today and their contributions to our community. We value their traditional knowledge about how to live sustainably on this land that we share and will leave for future generations. We are committed to the necessary learning, relationship building, and actions to work towards reconciliation. So at this point, I'm going to introduce our first sort of speaker. It's Tyler Marshall. Tyler is a water program coordinator with the Region of Waterloo. He's a communications and outreach professional with years of experience in community engagement. Since joining the Region of Waterloo in 2022, Tyler is focused on water programs designed to help residents cut down on their water use and save money on their water bills. So Tyler, I understand that you're gonna kind of set the stage for us and talk about why it's important to save on water.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. One of the things we like to do before we jump into the actual money saving aspect of things is we like to talk about our water ecosystem. So if I could just get you to jump to the next slide, Patrick. So we like to talk about, what our water conservation efforts mean to you as a resident and to our community and even to our water ecosystem. So when we design our programs, we essentially want to let people know that, you're drinking locally sourced clean drinking water. Our conservation efforts are meant to feed a growing population here in the region. I believe our region was originally expected to hit 1 million population somewhere around 2050, but that's of course since moved up. So all of our conservation efforts are kind of in an effort to feed our growing population. And then we also want our newcomers to understand how our water system works and why it's different from other municipalities around the province. So for example, Patrick, if you wanted to jump to the next slide, something a lot of people don't understand is that we're one of the biggest groundwater municipalities here in Canada. So that means about 80% of our water comes from underground. And what that means is essentially all the water that you drink, you cook with, you wash and shower with, it all comes from beneath the surface, or at least 80% of it does. So while you're sitting in your homes right now, there's water underneath you in groundwater aquifers, and it takes some digging to get to it, but it's there. So we want to make sure that you understand the difference between that and a more unlimited source like lake water or river water. So underneath layers of rock, sand, or gravel, groundwater is the rain or melted snow that soaks into our ground. And again, that makes up about 80% of our water supply. The other 20% comes from the Grand River. And if you're from here in the region and you're driving along Highway 8 towards the 401, if you look way, way off to the right, you'll see where our river collection is there on the Grand River. So that's a little bit about our water ecosystem, just to give you a bit of context going forward into the presentation. Patrick?
Okay, thanks a lot, Tyler. I'd like to bring Brendan Schaefer into the conversation at this point. Brendan has a background in construction and renovations, and he's worked with Reep Green Solutions as a water riser over the last 10 years. Welcome, Brendan.
Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, so I thought we could talk about there's often a difference between how much water people think they're using and how much water they're actually using. And I understand you have some visuals to help us understand that, Tyler.
Yes, for sure. So we do have a graph here. Just to set the stage here a little bit, this this data is from something called our wet home review program, and it's something that I'm going to be mentioning a lot tonight. So bear with me on that one. But we have data going back about 8 years. So you can see, you know, the blue line is people's actual water use based on their water bill data. And then the green line is a questionnaire that we give everybody at the home water review, just asking them a bit about their behaviors and how much water we think they're using. So, for example, in 2023, there was about a 50% difference there. And if we compare, you know, all of our data years together in the next slide, you'll see that there's about a third of a difference between what people think they're using and what they're actually using. So that's why we really encourage people to enroll in our programs. You know, you might have an idea of the water you're using at home, but the more knowledge you have, the better, and the more money you're going to save. Here we see about a third of a difference. On average, we see about 16% savings on your water bills if you make some of the changes that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah. Okay, that's really great. So where do you suggest people start in understanding how much water they are actually using, Tyler?
So the first thing we usually ask people to do is to take a look at their water bill. And when you're looking at your water bill, you know, there's a few key things we want you to look out for. But for example, this here on this slide is a City of Kitchener utility bill. So really what we want you to look at is your total consumption, and that's kind of highlighted in blue there. So in this example here, we have somebody that's using 5 cubic meters per month, and that cubic meter essentially represents 1,000 liters of water. So this person has used 5,000 liters of water total. And sorry, Patrick, if you could just jump back to the last slide. What we want you to do is to take that total consumption and then compare it to the regional average. So if we take a look at the chart on the right side of this infographic, you'll see that if you're living in a one-person household, you want to be using about 4.5 cubic meters per month. And then 2 people is 9, and, you know, 3 people, 13.5, and so on. So if you're around that threshold or you're above that, then you definitely qualify for one of our wet home water reviews. And we definitely want to take a look at some of the behaviors you're exhibiting inside the home, some of the fixtures, and we'll get into a little bit more about that later. But just so everyone's aware, we will have these resources available on our website. So no matter which municipality you live in, there's going to be a how to read your water bill infographic on our website later this month. So keep an eye out for that. But we have all the resources you need in one place. So if you have questions about your water bill, there's contact information on here. There's some resources on how to conserve water. There's some links you can visit. It's kind of an all-in-one document here for your water needs.
Excellent. That's really great. I think I'll ask this next one to you, Brendan. Do you have any tips for people about how to understand their water use without having to wait to see their next water bill? Oh, you're on mute there, Brendan.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Why don't you go ahead and advance the slides a bit there? There's the chart. So one way is to know about your water uses. This is the chart. Yeah, that was the chart that Tyler was talking about there. But one way to monitor your water usage and know how much water you're using is to look at your water meter. Your water meter is usually in the basement against the wall somewhere. It's where your main water shut off for your house is, and it's a really good idea to know where that is, of course, in case you need to shut off the water if you have a leak or something. But you'll notice these are 2 different types of meters. Some meters are like the one on the right. They're more of an analog dial type of meter, and some are digital. Both of them show numbers that represent cubic meters, and this is the total number. It's representing the total number of cubic meters that your house has used since this meter was installed, basically. So it's just an ongoing account of how much water's gone through the meter. So you can tell how much water you use in a given day or a given week or what have you by writing down this number. So on the right, you'll see it's 3303.999. So the decimal point there means that everything on the other side of that is hundredths, tenths, and actually, sorry, is the third. That means the numbers on here are 3,303 cubic meters, 0.999. And the point, if you look at the numbers past the decimal point, the first one would be 100 liters, the second one would be tens of liters, and the last one would be liters. If you look on the meter on the left, the digital meter, this type of meter actually requires that you shine a very bright light at the sort of the black little part of the dial there. That's a solar panel that lights up, that powers up the meter. So if you open the lid on this meter, the green part in the lower box will be blank, and you have to shine a light on it to get that to power up. But you'll see it's digital numbers, and but it's the same concept. This one's showing 36 cubic meters, 0.714. That means, and then the 714 is 714, basically. And so if you want to find out, if you want to know how much water you have used in a given day, you would basically write down the number here in the morning and one morning and or evening, and then write the number down again the next day at the same time, and the difference between those two numbers is how much you've used in cubic meters. So that's one way that you can check on your water usage between the times when you get the bill, so that you can actually tell. Particularly, you may want to know if you have a leak and that sort of thing. If you did have a leak, you can see the water usage. If you look at the meter on the right, there's the red dial there, which represents tenths of a liter. And if you have some water running, that, or if you have a leak that you're not aware of, that dial, that red dial, will be spinning around basically, and you'll see it moving. In the one on the digital one on the left, you'll be able to see the number where the fourth digit there, where it says 8 right now. You'll see that moving and changing. So that's one way that you can tell if you've got something leaking that you're not aware of. If you turn everything off and you still see it moving, you know that there's something still going.
Oh, that's really interesting. In terms of leaks, I understand that toilets are often the culprit of leaks and high water bills. Can you go into a little more detail about why that is and what people can do about it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's very common to have leaks that you're not aware of. And most commonly with toilets. One thing you can do about your toilets, of course, is to replace toilets that are inefficient. The older types might use as much as 13 or 20 liters per flush. Standard toilets now use about 6 liters per flush, and high efficiency ones use 4.8. So it's a huge difference in the amount of water that's being used. You can see in this photo, this one is an older one with a very big wide tank, and that's an old inefficient toilet that probably uses 13 or 18 liters per flush. So most toilets that you find now are either 6 liter or 4.8 liters. So upgrading your toilets is one way. But go ahead and advance to the next slide, Patrick. The other way, the way to check for leaks with your toilet, what happens with a toilet leak, you don't get water on the floor. And when I talk about leaks to people, oftentimes they say, well, I don't have any leaks because I would see the water on the floor. But it's not really water going on the floor. It's water leaking from the tank into the bowl and then down the drain without you even knowing it. So there is a way to test for that. And it's good to test this every maybe a couple times a year, because you don't always know when it's happening. But the thing to do is to put some blue coloring in the tank at the top there. You see it says peel, and this is from a card that we hand out that has peelable coloring, food coloring strips that you can drop in there. But you can use any kind of coloring, watercoloring, food coloring type of thing, and color that water in the tank, and then make sure no one flushes the toilet for about 15 or 20 minutes, and check the toilet and see if there's any of the color getting in the bowl. If there's any of that color in the bowl when you didn't flush the toilet, it probably means that you've got water leaking, and that can be a big source of water. Why don't you go ahead to the next slide, Patrick, because there's a little diagram here of what might be wrong if your toilet is leaking. It's usually something that's very easy to fix. It could be either the rubber flapper. In this case, the green thing you see there is the flapper or seal which lets the water through. Sometimes those get damaged, or just hard water deposits and that sort of thing. But it's a very easy thing to replace. You can get one at your local hardware store, take the old one off and bring it out to to the hardware store and get a replacement and just slide it back on. The other thing that might be causing a leak is if the water level in the tank is too high and it's going into the overflow tube, all the time, leaking into the overflow tube that you see on the top there. The thing to do with that is to adjust the water level in the tank. And you can see there's a float rod screw list right there on the diagram. That tends to be the screw where you can tighten that a little bit, and it will lower the water level that the tank is filled to, and that's really helpful. But there are different toilets with different types of adjusters on them, so you sort of need to look up what your toilet is, but usually they're pretty easy to adjust, and that makes a big difference. I think we have another slide. Yeah, and this is just another where you can see water going into the overflow on this one, the overflow right in the middle of the tank there. And the water level is a bit too high. You want it to be about a half an inch below the level of that overflow. Otherwise, you're getting water just constantly leaking through there. And I think there may be one or two more slides here about that, Patrick, if you want to go ahead and advance that.
I think the next ones look
Okay.
like they're about, yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Showers, which brings us to our next question. What are some of the more other common ways that households use and can save on water? Do you want to take this one, Tyler?
Sure. What I really want to emphasize here is that when we do our home reviews, which you can book for free on our website, the change we most often recommend is a change in behavior. So these next few slides, I really want to talk about some of the behaviors we see that are common inside homes when we do home reviews. And first off, the biggest water waster we see inside the home are long showers. I know a lot of people like their long showers, but just to give you a bit of context on what that means. So a 15-minute shower uses about 400 liters of water on average. So for a family of 4, that's about 1,600 liters per day if you're all taking 15-minute showers. And then that's equal to about 48,000 liters per month, or 4.8 cubic meters. So if you think about just the showers for a family of 4, that's equivalent to, one entire person's water use for the entire month. So when we talk about some of the changes we recommend, we really want to see people just being aware of how long they're spending in the shower. So when we do our home reviews, one of the things we give everybody that orders one is a shower timer. It just kind of sticks on the wall in your shower, and it's one of those hourglass timers, and it just lets you know when 5 minutes have passed, and then you flip it over, you do another 5 if you need to stay in. But we really want people to just be aware of the time that they're spending in there and how much water they're using. So we're going to circle or back around to this piece at the end to talk about how much money you could save by really cutting down on some of these behaviors. But yeah, just to give you a bit of context, it's about 4.8 cubic meters per month. The next area we see a lot of, behaviors that we would like to see improved in is when you're washing your dishes. So, letting your faucet run for more than 4 minutes uses more water than your dishwasher's entire cycle. And that's because your dishwasher kind of reuses that water that it's already used. So one of the things we do recommend is, don't pre-wash your dishes. Don't hand wash them unless you absolutely have to. Load up that dishwasher as full as you can, and then use the air dryer feature. And I think Brendan might go into a little bit of this in the next couple slides, but some of the changes that we recommend on occasion are making some upgrades. So if you don't have an energy efficient dishwasher, or you don't have a water efficient shower head, that's something that you can swap out. The shower head's obviously a bit easier, but those fixture upgrades are a bit key as well. So, and I think it's back to you now, Patrick.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into fixture upgrades. So if people are looking to save on water and in the market to upgrade their fixtures, do you have any recommendations for that, Brendan?
Yeah, actually. So with shower heads are the biggest one, and shower heads are very easy and inexpensive, relatively inexpensive to replace, and it makes the biggest difference. So it's really a good place to start. And an efficient shower head uses anywhere from about 2 liters to 7 liters per minute. And some of the less efficient ones use up to like 19 liters per minute. That's a huge difference, and as Tyler's pointing out, makes a huge difference in how much water you're using in your shower, depending on how long you're showering for as well. So those are the two sort of factors that you're looking for: the efficiency of the shower and how long your showers are. But really, just upgrading to a high efficiency shower head can cut basically your water use in half. Having an inefficient one is really uses a lot of water. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes people think that they won't get enough water if they have a high efficiency shower head, or that they will be not having as good of a shower. They actually did some blind testing of people with different shower heads a few years back, and found that most people can't actually tell the difference between a shower head that's efficient and one that isn't. But they also found that everyone liked a different type of shower, different type of flow in their shower head. So it's not necessarily a matter of in terms of what people like or find functional. It's not whether it's efficient or not, but it's rather just finding the right one that you like, or the right flow. The important thing is that when you're looking for a shower head, you look for this WaterSense label, because that tells you that it's efficient. Some of the shower heads will also have liters per minute marked on the shower head, but that's often harder to find, and maybe some of them don't have that. But usually, if they are high efficiency, they'll have that WaterSense symbol that you see there in the blue decal there. The other thing that you can do is changing the aerators on your taps. And if you want to go to the next slide there, Patrick, the aerator is the little button type thing that screws onto the end of your faucet, basically. And if you put a high efficiency one on, that can also cut down considerably on the amount of water that you're using for hand washing and that sort of thing. It's easy to replace. Usually you can just unscrew it without any tools. You may, if it's been on there a long time, you may need to use some pliers to get it off, but putting the new one on is usually a matter of just screwing it on with your fingers. But again, look for the WaterSense label when you're purchasing those, and then that way you'll know that it's high efficiency.
Okay, thanks for that, Brendan. In the lead up to this webinar, we asked you a bunch of questions. A lot of people really wanted to know about hard water and water softeners. So we'll take some time to get into those questions. Brendan, do you wanna just give us like the 101 on water softeners?
Yeah, go ahead and there we go.
Water hardness, I guess we could talk about.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is just about what is hard water to begin with, and basically it's particularly because in Waterloo Region, as Kyle pointed out, we get our water from under the ground. It has a lot of minerals in it. It has calcium and magnesium are typically the things that make the water hard. And as you can see from this graph, what's considered hard water, very hard water, is anything over 10 grains per gallon. So in the next slide, you can see what our water is like in Waterloo Region. And you see that the different areas have sort of different hardnesses depending on where their water's coming from, but all of them are way over 10 grams per gallon, grains per gallon. So all of the water in Waterloo Region pretty much is very hard water. You can find this map though on the region site and find out more specifically about your particular water where you live. This is a Waterloo Region map here. That's really helpful. But let's take a look at the next slide, Patrick. Basically what it does, what hard water does to your fixtures is you get hard water buildup. So you can see on the left there, that's a cutaway view of a water heater that has buildup, and basically the calcium and magnesium build up the pipes and on the inside of the tank, and it can cause your appliances to fail. You'll notice on your shower head you get hard water deposits like what's there on the top right, and on your faucets you might get hard water deposits around at the end of it where the water comes out. So a softener basically is protecting against this sort of thing. That's the main purpose of it, protecting your water heater and watching for buildup. But it also is a matter of how you find the water. Some people really like the feel of soft water, and that they have to use less soap and that sort of thing. So I mean that's another issue, another reason why a lot of homeowners have a water softener. But let's take a look at the next one here. So this is just sort of a basic diagram of how, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how a softener works, what it does. There's the brine tank on the right, where you put the salt. That's where you dump the salt in when you're putting salt into your softener. And what the softener does is it creates a very salty solution from that brine tank, and it pumps it into the mineral tank, which you see on the left there. And there are resin beads inside that tank that collect the saltwater solution and use that to pull the hard water. It's a sort of a chemical reaction that happens with the water, and it pulls that hardness out of the water, and so that the water coming out the other end of the tank is soft water, and that's kind of what it does. But after it's when the resin beads have collected all that they can collect, and they basically are saturated with the hardness, then it gets flushed out. The system flushes itself out and flushes out all the hardness down the drain. You can see another drain pipe going out on the left there. And this is where your softener uses water. It's flushing out all of the hardness down the drain so that you're not getting it in your plumbing, in your fixtures. But it takes water to do that. So this is what it's doing. Usually in the middle of the night when you hear it start making noise, you hear it going shh, or just making a lot of noise, like fast water running through it. And that's what it's doing. It's flushing it out. So I mean that's how it works. But it depending on if it's functioning properly and if the settings are optimized, you may be using a lot more water than you need to. And so that's the important thing, is knowing that it is actually functioning properly. One of the ways that actually, why don't you go to the next slide there, Patrick? Your softener can also leak, and again, by leaking, I don't mean that it's going to have water falling out onto the floor, but that the valve that's flushing that water out down the drain maybe has some problems, and the water, it makes noise all the time. Maybe it doesn't make noise, but you've just got water leaking through to the drain all the time. And it should never be making that noise or draining any water except when it's regenerating, which is, again, as I said, it's usually during the middle of the night, but it's usually only every few times a week at the most. It's probably normally would only happen maybe once a week, maybe twice a week if you have a very large household with a lot of people, but it might not happen except every 2 weeks. So that's kind of the way it should be running. So if you hear it running more often than that, it may be that the settings are off or that there's a problem with the valve. Why don't you go ahead to the next slide there, Patrick?
So yeah, I'll just remind people to that they can put questions into the Q&A at any time. We are going to take questions, and I think the next thing you're going to talk about, Brendan, was actually a question from somebody, is how often should the water softener run? You talked about that, and how much salt should be in the softener?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because this is the way that another way that you can know if your softener maybe is using more water than it should. If it's using more salt than it should, it's probably also using more water than it should. So typically a typical household uses maybe about 1 bag of salt per month. So if you're putting more salt than that into your softener, it may be that your softener is not functioning as efficiently as it should. You may need to have a plumber or a softener technician come and take a look at it, or just check the settings to see if it's set properly. They're all different. Softeners are, there's so many different types of softeners with the settings being done so many different ways. It's difficult to know exactly, but if you have the manual from your softener, you can take a look at that and see, check the settings the way it's supposed to be set, and how it's set, and see if you can, what it does is usually a softener measures the amount of water that's going through it, and it knows how much water it can soften in one cycle. And so once it reaches that limit of how much water it can soften, that's when it regenerates, and that's how it knows. So it may be that that it's set too aggressively, and that it's flushing more often than it needs to, that sort of thing. But another way to cut down on the amount of water that it uses in salt is to change it so that it's only softening the hot water. As I mentioned earlier, the main reason for that we have a softener is to keep the buildup from happening on our hot water pipes from the like the water heater and the hot water pipes. That's because it tends to happen usually when the water is heated, that's when it builds up on the pipes. So if you can change some houses are already set up this way where it's only the cold water that's being softened, and that of course uses basically about half as much water and half as much salt for the softener as doing all of the water. So if your softener is now set up with softening all of the water, including the cold water, you might consider changing the plumbing so that it's only routing the hot water through the softener.
Okay, there's lots more questions coming in about softeners, but I think the water softener plumbing rebate is a good segue, because we did get a question pre-submitted about different programs that the region runs and ways to save on costs that way. Tyler, do you want to quickly talk about that?
Sure. And I just want to add that if you're looking for more information on hard water and water softeners, we do have a website called watersoftenerfacts.ca that you can visit and find out more info. So we're gonna try to answer all your questions in the Q&A here. But while we're doing that, Patrick, if you could just advance the slide. So yeah, Brendan was kind of just talking about this a second ago, but we do have a program where you can get a rebate if you're softening your hot water only. So we do have the water softening plumbing rebate here. And what that essentially means is if you make the change to softening hot water only, you're going to get a $50 rebate. Now, whether or not you spend the money on a plumber to do it, or if you have the expertise yourself, it doesn't matter. You're going to get that rebate from us. So all we ask is that you submit a receipt along with it, and that if you do it yourself, you submit a picture of the change after it's been made. So if you do have the expertise, I would recommend doing that. But it's a great change to make. Like Brendan said, if you soften that hot water only, you're going to see less buildup in your heater tank, and you're going to make sure you prolong the life of the fixtures inside of your house. But the one I mentioned earlier, the big one that I wanted to talk about today was the free wet home water review. So what I really want to emphasize is that this is free. If you're not sure if you're eligible for the program, I'm going to encourage you to visit our website and get more info or get in touch with us so we can tell you if you're eligible. But basically, if you're a high water user or you suspect there's a leak in your home, we're going to have somebody come out to your home and really inspect both the fixtures and some of your behaviors that surround your water use inside the home. So if you are interested in more info on the wet home water review, there's a direct link to that. You can either go to this website down here, regionofwaterloo.ca/conservation, or you can do regionofwaterloo.ca/water review. Some of the other programs that we have might be relevant to some of you, might not, but we do have a multi-residential toilet flapper rebate. So that's for if anybody here is a landlord or you live in a multi-residential building. Like Brendan mentioned earlier, one of the biggest water wasters inside the home is that leaking toilet. And one of the biggest culprits of that is the toilet flapper. So if you can replace that, be sure to do it. And we do have some programs for that. We also have funding for multi-residential buildings, and then we have some business programs as well. But at the end of this presentation here, when you enter the survey, there's going to be a question on there about whether or not you want some more info about the wet home water review. If you answer yes to that, we'll be in touch with you to provide some more info. And I would just, again, encourage everybody to take advantage of it. It is free. It's at no cost to you. And it's going to give you a lot of great info on the specifics of your home and your behaviors on how to make those changes to save, the amount of water you use and to save money on your water bills.
Yeah, and just a quick plug, if you are in a multi-residential building, if you're a landlord, we do have a webinar coming up on November 9th, I believe at the noon hour, which is going to go into a lot more detail about ways to save if you're in those types of settings. So Tyler, I understand you've done some number crunching to really kind of quantify what the savings could be around some of the things that we've talked about, or if people have a wet home review. Do you want to go into some detail there?
Yeah, of course. So we've done about 2,000 home reviews over the last 8 years or so. And I think I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but on average, we're seeing about 16% savings on your water bill. So if you turn off the tap while you're brushing your teeth, you can save about 11,000 liters, and that translates to about $30 per year. It doesn't seem like a lot, but these little behaviors do add up. And if you fix a leaking faucet, you're saving about $27. The big two at the bottom here. So if you fix a leaking toilet flapper, that can run you about $55 a month unchecked. So we encourage you to, check for leaks regularly, and you're looking at some big savings there. And then again, reducing those shower times, you're looking at about $10 per person per month on average. So we really just want people to be aware of how long they're in the shower, how much water they're using, just to be able to save money on the amount you use. And again, that translates to your water bill as well.
Excellent. So we're to this section here. I do see lots of questions coming in. Some are getting answered on the fly, but I'll try and address these appropriately. I'm going to stop sharing screens so you can see our videos. So there was a question about water hardness and how people can test for that. I know that gets done as part of the wet home review, but is there any tips you can suggest? Maybe I'll ask you first, Tyler.
If you do get in touch with us and you do want to test your water hardness, we could send you some water hardness testing strips. So we do have an email address. It's watercycle@regionofwaterloo.ca. So if you would like to test the hardness of your water, just get in touch with us. But again, I would encourage you to visit watersoftenerfacts.ca. Check that water hardness map that Brendan showed in an earlier slide and see where your home falls. But the map's only going to do so much. I would encourage everyone to use those testing strips to actually run the test on their water, both hot and cold.
Yeah, it's a good way to know if both of your if the hot water and the cold water are being softened in your home. It's one way that you can do that, and that's something that happens when you have a wet review, that they will do that for you. So that's another reason why you might want to have a wet review done.
Okay. So still on the topic of water softeners or hard water, there's some questions about alternatives to water softeners. Can you maybe talk a little bit about those? Maybe I'll ask Brendan, you can kind of describe what those are, and then Tyler, you can jump in with any added information around the region's position around that.
Yeah, there are some alternatives. And if you go to the waterfacts.ca website, there's some information about that as well there, about the different types. The main one that seems to work pretty well is called template assisted catalysts, or TAC for short. And it's a little different though. It's not softening the water, but it is keeping the water, keeping the hardness in the water and keeping it from building up on the pipes. So that's one way that that you can, that's a type of alternative that doesn't use salt, but it doesn't give you that soft water feel. If you're looking for that, there isn't really an alternative that is going to make the water feel soft. But some of them that do keep the water from building up, the hardness from building up in your pipes. And then the template assisted catalyst is the main one. There are some others that do a little bit of that, but a lot of them don't do it completely. So it's not exactly a replacement for a water softener, but it may be something that you could do to lessen the hardness without using salt.
Anything to add there, Tyler?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that some of the alternatives don't necessarily remove the magnesium and calcium too. So I think for our region, softening with salt is the preferred choice by most people.
And I see Nicole answering a lot of these, but there's more questions about the hot only softening the cold water,
Yeah.
the hot water. Can you just go into a little more detail about why that works, or why people should do that?
Yeah, I mean, mainly the main reason, as I said, that we're softening the water is to keep the hardness from building up on the pipes. And it doesn't really build up on the cold water pipes. It's because when it's heated is when it reacts and with the pipes and tends to build up. So you rarely see hard water build up on cold water pipes. So there's not really a need to soften that cold water so much. I mean, there are some downsides to not having to having only the hot water softened. You may need to check your toilet flapper more often. You may have more buildup happening that can cause that to leak. So there are some downsides to it, but overall, it is cutting down on the water use as long as you're aware of that and you keep up with that. It's just better to have only the hot water. And a lot of homes are already set up that way, and they don't have any problems that way. So.
And just to add on to that, some of the benefits that we do like to highlight. So if you're only softening hot water, you're only using your softener half the time. So you're saving money, you're using less water, less wear and tear on your water softener, and we're also getting that clean, unsalted drinking water from the cold water in your house as well if you only soften the hot. So just a few things to add.
Here's yet another water softener one. What are some of the concerns with using too much salt in the brine tank at a time?
Yeah, I mean, using too much salt is what we're trying to avoid, but not necessarily too much in the brine tank. We're mainly concerned with a lot of salt going out when it goes down the drain, it's going into our water system. So that's sort of an environmental downside to it. But you don't necessarily have to worry about how much salt you're putting into the brine tank, because it's going to use it at whatever rate that it needs. So it's not going to, it doesn't matter if you add more salt to it. It doesn't mean that's not causing you to use more salt in your softener. It is a good idea, however, to not fill your brine tank, your salt reservoir too full. You don't want to fill it all the way up, because you can get it can get compacted if there's a lot in there. So it's better to just fill it maybe halfway, and then just top it up as needed when you see that it's gone, and you add some more. It's kind of really all there is to knowing how much salt to add. You kind of need to keep adding it as it gets used up. but you don't have to worry about it using too much. If you add too much, it doesn't really work that way.
I think I got a perfect one for you, Tyler. What concerns do people have, or the region have, or all of us should be concerned about increased salt levels in our groundwater?
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, we're not like a lot of other municipalities here in Ontario where we get our water from a river or from a lake. And when we do use salt, if we overuse that, salt goes into our groundwater aquifers. So that's essentially what we're trying to prevent here. So we want to make sure that when you use salt, you have your settings set to the correct setting, but that's not necessarily a concern in your water softener per se. It's something that we usually like to talk about in regards to salting in the winter. So when you're using that salt outdoors, we do have a lot of programs designed to reduce the amount of salt you use outdoors, and the amount of salt that as a result ends up in our water supply. So when it comes to your water softener, I don't think there's a lot that you should know about worrying about that ending up in our water supply. And if you do want more information on that, we do have regionofwaterloo.ca/source protection. So that just talks about protecting our water supply from salt and from other things that can be harmful.
So I'll try and address this generally. There's some specific questions about, again, water softener settings, and how that relates to hardness. How do people make sure that their settings are kind of dialed in correctly?
Yeah, that's a tough one to do. If you have a manual for your softener, you can look at that, and it will that's where knowing what your hardness specifically of your water, what the hardness of your water specifically is helpful, because a softener has a capacity as to how much water it can soften, and that depends on how hard the water is. If there, how much hardness is in your water. So that's good information to have in order to help set your softener so that it knows how often to regenerate. And so your softener is measuring the amount of water that goes through it to know when it needs to regenerate the next time. And if your water is super, super hard, it's going to have to do that more often. In other words, it can only soften less of that water. The volume of water going through it is going to be that will saturate the beads in the system, meaning you'll have to flush it out. That's going to be a lot sooner than if your water is less hard. So, each system can remove a certain amount of hardness from the water before it has to regenerate. And knowing how hard your water is will then allow you to put that into the settings. I can't tell you specifically how to set your softener. And if you don't have the manual, and if you're not sure how to do that, you probably want to talk to a plumber or a softener technician to A, do that for you, or B, show you how to do it.
Okay. Thanks for that. There's a couple questions which I'll try and combine here about on-demand hot water heaters. Are those able to save water? And the second part of that is, does only softening hot water would that have any effect on an on-demand heater?
Yeah, an on-demand heater is not going to really have any effect on how much water you're using, because it's just heating the water. It's not using any water, as your water heater isn't using any water. But it is very important to have a good softener if you have an on-demand water heater, because that's going to build up the hardness in the pipes very quickly, because it actually heats a bit hotter because it's heating right immediately. So there is a bit more of a concern to make sure that your softener is doing its job if you have an on-demand water heater.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, but to answer your question, having only your hot water softened versus hot and the cold is not going to affect your tankless or your on-demand water heater.
Yeah, excellent. There's a great comment here. Just wondering how Brendan gets such great internet service sitting in the middle of a field. So,
Yep. I pay a lot for my internet services that have beamed all the way out here.
yeah. Well, Brendan also, if you don't know, he wears another hat as our IT expert. So if there's a way, Brendan will find it. So I think in the interest of time, we'll wrap up here and I'll give the final word to you, Tyler. Just a reminder that there is a survey at the very end, and you do have to fill it out to get a chance to win a rain barrel. Make sure that you go to the second page and answer all the questions in order to do that. But any last word around Regional Waterloo programs you want to touch on there, Tyler?
I just wanted to reiterate, there's no cost for the free wet home water review. So if you're not sure, let's get you some more information. And if you are sure that you're an above average water user, then let's book that home review for you. So thanks for coming. Make sure you fill out our survey because somebody's going to win a rain barrel tonight. So thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Brendan, for being our subject matter expert, and Nicole for fielding all those questions on the fly. And of course, thanks to the Region of Waterloo for helping to make this presentation possible today. So like I said, we'll be sending out a link to the recording in a few days' time. Like Tyler said, fill out the survey if you want a chance to win a rain barrel. Even if you don't, fill out the survey. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Take care.